Hello, my real estate and investor friends. Hey, this is Kenn Renner, real estate broker here in North Austin. I'm just wanted to extend an invitation for you to watch some information from one of my experts, Todd West from Integra Insurance. He's been my insurance broker, gosh, I guess for over 20 years now. And he's been our go-to part of our network of help as our go-to insurance expert. And great thing about him is he's able to shop our policies around to different companies rather than just being stuck with one like Allstate or Farmers or what have you. But I brought him in here to do a quick podcast because there's been a lot of questions about what's going on with the insurance industry lately, especially with all the natural disasters or hurricanes, the fires, in Texas we have our own issues with hail and things like that, and it really has affected our properties. Really, the insurance rates have gone up extremely high, and in several cases, large companies are pulling out of Texas, and we've been getting some kind of panic calls saying, "Hey, are we going to be able to get insurance out here?" And so we're going to answer a lot of those questions and uncover a lot of stuff that a lot of the myths and everything, but also the truths of what's happening with the market. Now, the reason I call this is because I have six policies or seven policies with Todd with Progressive Insurance. And Progressive just pulled out of the Texas market for investors, but I didn't know it's not for primary buyers or primary owners. So they're still in Texas. So they haven't pulled out completely, only pretty much for investment side of things. So Todd, tell me about the shakeup, and then also why my policy went from 800 to about $1,200 a year up there in our Temple market.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. I love getting the chance to speak to your listeners and your clients, and a lot of those are my clients as well. So if we can reach them, that's great.
Yeah.
The big news is obviously in the rental property market for insurance, Progressive's pulling out of the market. They have typically been the least expensive carrier in the market for last 5, 6 years. They had great rates. I think they were a little bit underpriced compared to everyone, and so I think that's the majority of the reason why they're starting to pull out. But they have decided to non-renew all Progressive rental insurance policies within the state of Texas. So they started it, I believe, April 1st. So if you snuck in March, you get to keep your policy for a little bit longer, but eventually you're going to get that non-renew notice from Progressive that says, "Hey, your policy is going to expire upon your renewal." So um, a lot of changes in the rental market, right?
Right.
If you're a client of our company, of Todd West Integra, we'll automatically reach out to you, reshop your rates, probably about 30 days prior to the expiration date. But a lot of movement in the market. They're not the only company that's pulling out of the rental insurance market here in Texas. Everyone's raising rates quite a bit.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to raise deductibles as well, mainly because of all the hail damage that we've kind of seen year after year in the Temple market, in the Georgetown market, Central Texas market.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of these insurance carriers haven't been profitable. So I think that's part of the reason why they're doubling rates, over the course of years to try to get some money back and stay profitable so that they can remain insuring homes in the state for rental properties.
So tell me about the deductibles. I know that we had some 2% deductibles now, and hard to find 1% at all. And so tell me what, obviously they're mitigating their costs. Or what insurance companies do. They raise their prices and cut their increase their deductibles and cut their
Yeah.
coverage, right?
Yeah. So a lot of companies are going to 2% wind and hail mandatory in Texas, right? Central Texas, Austin markets, Temple markets, all over. They're really trying to get out of the roof game. And that's a tough thing to be in right here in Central Texas because we get hit with so much hail. But they're trying to get out of the business of replacing roofs every couple of years.
Yeah.
I think if they can do that, it's a great long-term prospectus for the insurance companies because I think rates stabilize a little bit when they are not replacing so many roofs and they're replacing more things like water damage that, things that typically don't happen as much.
Yeah.
So they're trying to put a little bit more back on the customer, and a lot of the companies are increasing to 2%. There are a couple companies, and their rates fluctuate, but they will go less than 2%, but it's very few.
Yeah. So, the thing that I've seen that was that these homes that we normally sell newer homes, less than 10 years old, sometimes less, brand new. A lot of our clients are brand new, and I've noticed that the newer roofs can, especially if they're the more architectural shingle, can stand up to hail a lot more than the old roofs that were built, of a 15-year-old house. How does that affect especially if like recently I've had to replace a couple roofs in Temple, and I've got this, and we've had hail since then, but because it's a newer roof, it sustains a lot up to half inch or even more than the old roofs that can't handle it.
Yeah, so most companies will give you a discount on your insurance if you replace your roof, right? That's one of the big factors.
Okay.
Obviously, the longer you can keep a roof is a good thing because you're not paying out on deductibles and not having claims, and that helps rates as well long term. But yeah, I think the new, my strategy for my customers is typically if you have a newer roof, I think it's advantageous to go to the 2% deductible, even if you're not being required to, just because you might as well save the money out of pocket at this point and hope that your roof stands up the test of time, being a newer roof. But yeah, it's a big thing. Newer roofs. I would encourage your clients and my clients as well to reach out to me when they get a new roof because a lot of times independent agents don't know,
Mm,
and that's a great time to reshop a policy when you get a new roof because certain companies don't give discounts for it, but a lot of companies do, and it's a
mm.
great time to reshop, reevaluate the policy as once a new roof goes on. And like I was saying, a lot of times independent agents aren't told. We just don't know. So um, I want to get customers the best rate possible. So always relay that information to whoever the broker is you're working with or whoever the company is you're working with. Because unfortunately, insurance companies don't automatically update it when you get a new roof. You think the two would link,
Right.
but oftentimes they don't. So we'll find customers that had a new roof put on 3 years ago, and we're still rating them for a 10-year-old roof. We want to cut down on some of those things.
Okay, so those are all good angles. I didn't even think about the fact of the current policies of just bouncing it off of them, because yeah, I mean, and that's another reason why we sell these new homes is that they we're starting to see obviously I own a bunch of property and if once you get past 10, 12, 15 years, you start looking at dishwashers, you start looking at potential roofs somewhere along the line, you're looking at the air conditioning units, which are now double the price. So it's not just insurance, it's double. The AC units have to be upgraded to new standards. So that's one of the reasons why our clients are so appreciative of buying new homes that are under warranty and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So tell me a little bit about the insurance claims that when does it cross over from like say into where there's enough damage as opposed to just something that's wearing out.
But so that was a great point you made on the new construction homes. Insurance companies price to that as well. So they're going to give their best rates to the newer homes because they're higher likelihood to have fewer claims.
Right.
Um, Once a roof gets 10 years old, once a house gets 10 years old, you really see insurance companies drive up prices because, to be brutally honest, they're trying to push you almost out of their company. They're going to raise your rate double and hope you go somewhere else because the likelihood of them paying out on a claim at that point and being less profitable as a company are higher. So new construction is a great option. There's still companies pricing great prices for new construction, and they'll keep those prices pretty steady
Yeah,
over the next couple of
it
years.
seemed like
It
it was
won't hit
about
you.
20 to 30% less. I mean, it was under $1,000 for a new home as opposed to about 12, 1,300 for a home that's 7 years old.
Yes,
And
yes, absolutely.
it's got me thinking now. I mean, I've got a property that I've owned for 8 years and it's done really well. It's appreciated great. I can 1031 tax defer into two brand or three brand new houses using the same equity. Now I don't have to worry about the roofs for a while.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the roofs. Probably don't have to worry about insurance. Your rates on insurance are going to be a lot less for those first couple of years. So new construction's always been a sweet spot that a lot of these companies want from an insurance perspective.
Well, that's really cool. What else can you add for us or value add to our clients other than to give us your contact information? Because, like I said, you and I have been going back 20 years, over 20 years. You've done all my policies for I don't know how many primary residences and almost all of my rental properties. And one things that I like about our advisors is that they're specialists in what we do because we do a lot of investment property. Not every insurance company is going to as be expert in how to deal with insurance, tenants, things like that we have to the water claims or whatever happened during storms or floods, which we really don't get a whole lot of flooding around here, but so tell us a little bit about any of the new up and coming things that we should be watching out for in the future and also your information so we can get a hold of you.
Sure, I would stay in constant communication with whatever broker you're using, not necessarily the insurance company, right? If you're insuring with Allstate, I wouldn't call Allstate to ask questions. I would call your broker first.
Okay.
Because you always want to get some advice on if you want to file that claim. Because the minute you call Allstate and file a claim, let's say it was $1,000 worth of tiny water damage and your deductible is 5,000. Well, they're going to tell you, hey, you're not able to file a claim because your deductible is higher, but that goes on your record.
Hmm.
Even though you didn't end the claim and file it and get a payout, that can still impact future rates. And there's a lot of companies that are changing their underwriting perspectives to where if you have multiple claims, even if there's zero paid claims, you call it in, hey, my roof's damaged. Oh, okay, we're not going to replace the roof. That counts. And now if you have two or three of those, certain insurance companies might require you to have a really high wind hail deductible or might reject you all altogether. So I would always stay in contact with a broker. I think that's why we're a value add because the landscape in rental properties is changing quite a bit. It's changing in Texas property insurance total, but I'd say rental properties times five because 5 years ago there was companies like Travelers and others that really wanted that market. They had great rates, they had great coverage. And about 2 years ago, they decided they didn't want that market anymore. So they're going to non-renew things. They're going to double, triple your rates to try to get you to switch. Working with someone that's a professional that knows, all right, well, right now, these three or four companies are generally competitive on new construction or 10-year-old homes. And these couple companies in the past were great, but they're not now. So having that insider knowledge to know who to look for saves customers the time from having to go out and try to shop 10, 15 companies by their own. Because as an agency, as a broker, we can shop out 30 different companies. We usually don't have to because we know the sweet spot of, the year of the house and the roof and the location to kind of know, all right, I bet these 4 or 5 companies are going to be the most competitive. Let's go out and see what the prices look like.
So about
Um,
location, that's another thing that was interesting to me is it driven it's driven by zip code and events that have happened recently in certain particular areas, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And you saw this shift in the Texas market in the Houston market years ago because they would get hit with hurricanes and nobody wanted to insure Houston, but Central Texas, Temple was a great area. Then all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden Dallas started getting hail and nobody wanted to insure Dallas. And then all of a sudden we've been on a run here for 6, 7 years where it seems we get 3 or 4 hailstorms a year and there's neighborhoods going through new roofs. And now nobody wants to insure Central Texas either. So I think that's why the rates have gone up so much. But with that lends new players into the game. There's new companies writing rental properties. Some of them have a little bit more technology basis where they can get a better rate. So you just never know. But the market's changing so much that almost year to year, it's good to check in with your person that represents your policies just to make sure because there might be a new company on the rise that's buying up the market and they have great rates for a temporary time. Might be worth the move at that point.
So tell me also about general liability insurance. What should we be looking at on our policies to make sure we're covered as much as we can through the homeowners insurance?
I'm a big believer in maxing out liability on every rental property you own. Having an umbrella as well is a good additional way to have some additional liability exposure. But the difference between 500,000 of liability coverage on your rental property versus 300,000, which is usually the top two, is less than 5, $10 a year.
Yeah,
And to
totally with
get,
it.
I just think anytime you have tenants, the unknown, it's always smart to protect your assets by getting the most liability protection you can. So I always recommend 500 because again, it's a cheap change. If you can add an umbrella policy, I definitely recommend that. Typically, if you're from out of state, you have to add it in the state that you reside in. I'd probably call your auto insurance company. It's a good place to start to where to add an umbrella because there's discounts associated with that. But big believer in having high liability.
Me
It's
too.
super inexpensive and it's one of your biggest exposures, obviously, having tenants in your properties.
Yeah, so a quick question on that. We have some property managers then and owners that want that require their tenants to have renters insurance. What does the renters insurance benefit the homeowner? The,
I think
if
it can
any.
help separate a claim, right? If personal property is damaged in a water damage claim, um, you do have some personal property coverage on your policy as a landlord.
Mhm.
That way, you wouldn't have to explore that option. There's also liability protection on renter's insurance that
Okay.
potentially could work for one of your tenants.
Okay.
Depends on the situation, obviously, and if the owner was negligent, all those type of things. But that at least provides a separate outlet for your tenant to potentially not sue you, instead go to the insurance company for whatever the liability claim might be.
Okay, well, cool, Todd. It's been really helpful. I really appreciate you once again taking your time in the middle of your busy day. And so, give us your contact information and your phone number and your email address. And then, of course, I'm going to push this out to my contacts and all my investors because you've done so much good work for us in the past, and we want to keep the network and all of the networks of help coordinated. So, thanks a lot. So,
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. So Todd West Integra is the name of my business. Again, we're an independent agency. We shop around 30 different companies. The easiest way to reach us, because I have a staff that helps monitor email flow, is Todd at toddwestintegra.com. That's definitely the easiest way to reach us. If you need to call us, 512-790-3006 is our company office line. But even if you get to the voicemail, it'll tell you the best way to reach us is email. So Todd at toddwestintegra.com, by far the easiest way to find us. And we'd be happy to run quotes for you and look at options.
all right, cool. Thanks, Todd. Thanks for your time once again, and we'll see you on the next policy.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
See ya.